Hello all, Rick here with another lore video on a non-Federation vessel. Well, as of 2382, I guess that's technically not true anymore, what with Ferengi joining the UFP. Either way, this is the lore and history behind the Decora class vessel, also known as the Ferengi Marauder. A consistent theme of this ship is that it's a surprising one that downplays the danger it poses. Let's start with the real-world history of the design. It was created by Andrew Prober to be visually different from the Federation vessels and one of the earliest new ships for the next generation. It still needed an iconic shape and a difference in hull texture to mark it as very alien when compared to the hero ship. The initial design was to be a horseshoe shape, and the neck was added to be extendable. The pincers on the wings and the concave fore of the ship were to evoke the pincers of something like an earwig. A lot of thought was given to how a design could be so different from the Federation one yet retain the same components, which might seem like a basic consideration now, but like I said, it was one of the first for TNG, so a lot of this was all new again. For example, the rule of nacelle alignment was still at play here, which is why the bottom of the Marauder is slightly curved. So, moving on to its lore. First off, the naming convention. The vessel earned the moniker Marauder for its perceived actions. A marauder is a looter, a pillager, raider, someone who commits piracy, and after the first contact with the Ferengi from the Federation, it's easy to see why they'd get this reputation. First encountered by Captain Picard in 2364, the Decora class has been around since the mid-2350s, and would continue on well into the 2380s as the Ferengi Alliance's premier multi-role starship. The Federation evaluated the design and deemed it a warship in regards to its level of firepower, and while some certainly fulfilled that role, it was not their primary purpose. The first of the line was the Decora herself, launched in 2350, and the initial mission profile was that of an armed transport vessel. Ferengi trade and commerce rules at the heart of their society, so, of course, they would need a stable cargo network for their own transport goods. However, the Ferengi are also very ingrained with the economics of many other species and will utilise a trade network of their partners too, which does mitigate the need for their own fleet. As for the heavily armed nature of the vessel, well, I'm not saying the Ferengi would resort to plundering, but I am saying that they know the value of what they transport and have considered the trials that cargo vessels often face from piracy, so coating their own transportation ships with the most effective deterrents that Latinum can buy was considered a necessity. Plus, you're less likely to argue with a merchant when they're packing heat. Additionally, the Ferengi's military was also sporadic and less of a unified force, with many officers simply running their own agenda, almost completely independent. Any Ferengi in a position to buy their own Decora starship could then command one and build their own crew, leading to a myriad of Daimons, the equivalent of a captain, both independent, representing different organisations, and more. As long as you paid your tithes to the FCA and Grand Nagus, a lot of the Ferengi captains had a pretty liberal reign on what they did, be it for good or bad. This led to incidents where ambitious Daimons would act outside of the FCA's regulations to use their ship's formidable arsenal to acquire new wealth or push out perceived competition. Ferengi Daimons had a large say in the operation and technologies present in their Marauder vessels, which means that almost every Marauder, although initially produced to a schematic, had seen numerous alterations to suit the tastes or purpose of its commander. It's therefore not unusual to see a vessel with varying weapon loadouts, capabilities, or even serving completely different roles. So these ships ended up under the purview of the Ferengi Alliance's governmental bodies, the FCA, the Acrobite Mining Consortium, and a lot of independent merchants. The stats for this ship are therefore going to follow the defaults, if you will, the Decora as it rolled off the production line. Then I'll mention some witnessed customisations. The vessel was 630 metres long, 210 wide, and 84 tall across 33 decks. Its average crew complement was 450, although this could vary wildly based on the needs of the Daimon. In terms of armaments, the two wingtip claws were in fact directed energy disruptors that seemed to fire plasma-based projectiles. This charge would power up between the prongs of the claw before firing. Additionally, there was a forward-mounted torpedo launcher on the top of the vessel and an additional missile launcher for a variety of alternate warheads. The vessel had a powerful electromagnetic plasma generator in the aft of the ship, which was designed to depower and drain enemy power supplies, from shields to auxiliary systems. This could be deployed as a weapon, but the fact it was located in the rear of the vessel suggests that it was in fact there to slow down potential pursuers if the Decorer was on the run and trying to elude hostiles. Fire a couple of bursts of this, then go to warp, and hopefully any pursuit won't catch up. The ship too could shift somewhat to expose vital systems by extending the neck a little. The exact reason for this is unclear, although it does grant a more effective firing position for the torpedo launcher. I doubt this is its primary use, however, as it's more likely to simply be the equivalent of popping the car bonnet or hood for maintenance purposes. This has been used in an attempt to show weakness and to fool opponents in the past. Supplication and begging is a part of Ferengi culture too, so it being present in their ships' design is perhaps not that surprising. What is surprising, however, is its warp capability. The vessel had a rather unassuming power supply and standard matter-antimatter warp core, however, it was remarkably efficient and only considered a few years behind the Federation's own Galaxy Class, which says a lot. Its cruising warp factor was 7, with a maximum of just over warp 9. How long it remained so was down to the skill of the operating crew, however. It had 4 rear impulse drives, and the warp coils were located along the rear of the vessel's wings. The Decorer was capable of atmospheric flight, although are likely too large to land without substantial structural integrity generators. Not saying it's impossible, just that they are heavy, and while they can hover very low to the ground, we've never seen one land. Under the vessel, there was a loading bay hatch, explaining why so much effort was given to letting a vessel so large enter a planet's atmosphere. Sometimes they needed to drop off cargo. Unsurprisingly, the ship featured spacious cargo bays, with a vast majority of the rear of the vessel being numerous holds, with access via a single large bay door. There was also a ramp beneath the fore of the vessel, which could extend to clamp down on another ship to act as a boarding avenue should the Marauder need to maraud. Under the neck of the ship was a smaller shuttlecraft that could be deployed and was akin to the captain's yacht of some Federation vessels. This was more likely to be used for atmospheric flight than taking the ship down. It did also include 2 main shuttle bays that faced forwards for both entertaining guests and carrying a small complement of their own shuttles. Not every Decorer had them, however, as this cost extra. Now, as the initial ship featured in the last outpost displayed many things that were never seen again, it's hard to quantify what may be added by its captain or what was its stock loadout. For example, the surrendering posture never reoccurred, as it seemed a bit of a dumb trick to play as you can only do it once before word spreads. Even if the first one we saw also had additional weaponry hidden behind this pose, it seems a poor trade. A ship named the Damsel was outfitted with not only a cloaking device, but was also heavily automated to allow it to be operated by a single person. This is the vessel that made its way to the Gamma Quadrant, likely utilising the aforementioned cloak to slip through the Bajoran wormhole, and led to Dal being sold off to the slave mines of Tars Lamora. We also see that many Ferengi ships have these prongs attached to the wings, but not all, which feature as the ship's original main weapons battery. The absence of these on some vessels leads me to believe that alternate armaments were affixed to these ships elsewhere. Most of the vessel's internal layout was very utilitarian, however, with minimal comforts given. This was all cost-saving measures. Any furniture was likely an eclectic mix of acquired goods and personalizations to display some level of wealth, but even these were reserved for private quarters or areas that the guests would see. Therefore, the majority of the ship was sparse and uncomforting. However, they are one of the few species to actually put their bridge deep within the centre of the vessel. The Ferengi themselves often rely on being underestimated when it comes to combat, and the Marauder-class vessels capitalise on this. Almost on par with a Galaxy Class Starship, these vessels are genuinely nothing to scoff at. Although, with the greater variety of tech and crews present within the Ferengi fleet, there is no guarantee that a Decora class will be fully utilised, nor, to be fair, a threat. Some are genuinely just used as heavily armed cargo ships, but then they were also designed to facilitate piracy. It's a ship that harkens back to the nature of the Ferengi, who both in-universe and behind the scenes received overhauls to their lore as time went on, and the Decora's more aggressive aspects are vestiges of that more aggressive time in their continuity. Still, don't mess with them. Thanks for watching this video on the lore of the Decora class. I've been Rick, and until the next one, thanks again, and goodbye.